Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's absolutely lovely to have a village beacon that we can light at events like this, and it's particularly special, David, because 80 years ago today, this very evening, two Gestingthorpe born men were on the beaches of Normandy, and both of them have sons living in the village today. One of them is Mike Smith and the other is John Hasler, and it's really lovely that you are both here. Douglas Hasler was born near the Pheasant, where his father was a thatcher. Douglas joined the Royal Marines in 1940, and he went across the English Channel on D-Day, arriving at the beachhead at about 5 o'clock in the afternoon. He was part of that enormous armada. He went in a landing craft that was 20 foot long and 6 foot wide. It was tossed about the whole way. It was an enormous battle to try and pour petrol from 4-gallon jerry cans into the engine as they went, but they finally arrived with their cargo of scaffolding pipes that were to build the docks that would eventually enable the advance to keep going forward. He was there for some weeks, and on the first morning saw the enormous piles of dead bodies. Leslie Smith, who some of us remember as Luke Smith, Mike, his son, is standing to my left. He was born in a cottage near Parkgate Farm where his father worked. He joined the Royal Engineers and he crossed the Channel on D10. That was the 16th of June. Before doing so, the power barge that he and his 4-man crew were in very nearly sank when it was coming round the English Channel on its way to Portsmouth. Luckily, they managed to find a safe harbour for it on a beach near Newhaven. And if anybody wonders why Mike lives in a house named by his father as Newhaven, just a couple of hundred yards down the road, that is the reason. Like Douglas, Leslie was also involved in ferrying supplies from the big Liberty ships to the beachhead at Arromanch, always at risk and in fear of enemy aircraft and mines. After a few months, Leslie was transferred to Boulogne, then to Antwerp, and eventually into Germany as the liberation of Europe continued. As we paid tribute to Douglas and to Leslie, and I knew them both, and I had the greatest respect and admiration for both of them, they would be the very first to say, don't forget the other Gestingthorpe born men who were in uniform at the same time. Today, 80 years ago, June the 22nd, 1944. Cecil Pannell, who lived at the Firs, his parents were the postmaster of the village. Cecil gave the seat in front of the village hall. 80 years ago today, he was doing communications with the army in the North African campaign. So was also Mike Smith's uncle, Leslie's brother Clive, together with lorry driver Dick Halls, who lived in the Sudbury Road, and Ronnie Coe, who I've just discovered from Peter, crossed the Channel on June the 6th, if not June the 7th, and then continued with the Trank Regiment on the attack towards Germany. Also, 80 years ago, Dennis Rippingale, who lived in New Cottages, was in India and the Burma campaign, driving lorries to support the Royal Air Force. Similarly, further afield, and to some extent even more poignant, were Chris Felton and Edgar Wiseman. Both were in Japanese prisoner of war camps. Both lived in the Sudbury Road, and like everyone else I've mentioned, had been to school in Gestingthorpe School, which is now our lovely village hall. 80 years ago today also, and we mustn't forget them, the parents of Donald Meeking, mentioned on the war memorial, were still grieving the loss of their son, killed when his aircraft was destroyed by enemy aircraft in 1942. Likewise, the parents of David Ruffle from Parkgate Farm, whose ship was torpedoed and he was killed in November 1940 as part of a convoy. And we shouldn't forget too, Scantlebury Philp, killed in the tragedy of the Home Guard accident, also recorded on the War Memorial. Next year, we will pay tribute to everyone from Gestingthorpe who played their role. The nurses, the WAFs, the ATS, the Red Cross, the whole gambit of society who performed invaluable action to ensure that we have the freedoms and the liberties that we have today, and that we can all exercise in such freedom in a fortnight's time. But this year, with the commemoration of D-Day, it seems right to light the beacon, particularly in memory of Douglas and of Leslie and of everyone else from this parish who was in uniform and serving 80 years ago today. Thank you, and may it blaze in their memory. Thank you. I was so worried during that rainstorm at lunchtime that it wouldn't light, that they would all be looking down and saying, what absolute twerps you are nowadays, and thank goodness we aren't trying to organise D-Day.
Well done, Peter.
As well, there's quite a few, firelight issues. But yeah, that was the
Still there, but it's just not.